Assalamualaikum and hi everyone. We are from group VALERIANA and we will presenting about Ramley's business opportunity in Australia. Australia is a multicultural society that has different cultures and religions. It is one of the most ethnically and geographically diverse nations in the world. The largest city in the country is Sydney, but the capital city itself is located in Canberra. There are 27 million people live in Australia. The Aborigines was the first people arrived in Australia about 50,000 years ago. It is a continental country located below Asia in the southern hemisphere. Because Australia is located apart from other continents, it has a beautiful island and unique flora and fauna like kangaroo or platypus. And also, the only egg-laying mammals on Earth exist in Australia. According to the Human Development Report, Australia is the 7th best country to live in. Australia is also one of the most cosmopolitan countries in the world and home to the world's largest living civilization. This country is also the most law-abiding in the world and also has many unique laws. For example, releasing balloons into the environment is against the law because it is considered as littering. In Australia, everyone has the right to live by their own beliefs because this country has a parliamentary democracy, so they value freedom of speech, association, assembly, and religion.
Now I will explain more about Australia's cross-cultural factors. Australia has a lot of cultural diversity that comes from the residents who come from various countries due to the immigrants from Asia and Europe. Australians are using English as their primary language. Many people know that Australians' personalities are easygoing and friendly. Hello and how are you is one of the methods of welcoming the Australians. Regarding cross-cultural factors, we know that culture is a thought, rules, and habit that is difficult to change. About the food culture in Australia, they really like a variety of foods that reflect the mix of culture that have existed in their country. For the example, Southern Europe collaborates with Asia and the Pacific to produce new flavors in food. And for the Middle East, flavors like Moroccan and Lebanese food cooked with local ingredients are also welcome in that country. There are many Italian, Chinese, Indonesian, Japanese, Greek, Thai, Malaysian, French, and Vietnamese restaurants that can be found in Australia's big city. Compared to Malaysian food culture, Australians also have the same habit, which is to consume 3 meals a day. Australians usually eat cereal, bread, and coffee in the morning. For lunch, they will have a light meal such as sandwich, burger, or salad. And in addition, with so many options accessible nowadays, Australians also eat curries, noodles, sushi, or pizza for lunch. Lastly, for the dinner, they really enjoy eating out. Australia is one of the world's most efficient agricultural nations, producing high-quality vegetables, fruits, grains, meat, poultry, seafood, cheese, and other dairy products. Related to the Ramley's product, the burger that consists of meat, vegetables, and bread, it will be easy to find the resources if they want to expand their business in Australia. According to Australian culture, the Ramley's burger is considered to be accepted because it is one of their optional meals during the day. Furthermore, Australians and Malaysians have similar dietary habits. It is an opportunity to Ramley to be their snack in the afternoon. More precise food requirements such as kosher, halal, and gluten.
The country factors that result in country risk. According to the Global Age website, Australian National Risk Assessment is A3. A3 indicates that change in the generally good but somewhat volatile political and economic environment in Australia may affect corporate payment behavior. Firstly, political instability in Australia has intensified. Political risk determines the political stability of a country, both internally and externally. Internal political risk for Australia. Australian local time on the evening of May 31st, new Australian Prime Minister Bernard Albanese announced that his Labour Party had won a majority in the House of Representatives. As a new government takes office, issues such as policy change could undermine its stability. If Romney plans to enter the Australian market, it may face the risk that the new government will change the foreign investment framework. After internal political risk, then is external political risk for Australia. On the external front, Australia called for a global independent investigation into origins of the COVID-19 outbreak at the World Health Organization annual meeting in May 2020. This has soured Australia's relations with China. Those tensions spread as China imposed sanctions on a wide range of Australian goods. They range from imposing tariffs to imposing other bans and restrictions. Romney need to understand that Australia is in a trade war with China and Russia. China has imposed sanctions on a wide range of Australian goods, and Australia slapped a 35% tariff on all imports from Russia and Belarus. The trade war will have a several impact on Australia's economy, so it could impose tariffs or quantitative quotas on imported goods to help domestic producers. In addition to political risk, Australia also faces the risk of corruption. Australia scored its worst ever score on a key corruption measure. Transparency International released its annual CPI on January 25, 2022, a widely respected global measure of anti-corruption effort. Australia scored 73 out of 100, down 4 percentage points from its ranking in recent years, and the worst result since TI adopted its current method of measuring corruption in 2012. While Australia is still considered an overall clean jurisdiction, its continued decline in TI CPI over the past decade is a concern. As a result, Rome will need to consider additional risk if it wants to enter the Australian market. In the medium term, this decline in perception affects confidence in investing or trading in Australia and may lead to additional protection being embedded in trading arrangements to deal with perceived additional risk. Romney also need to understand that Australia's Foreign Investment Review Board may impose conditions when approving foreign investment due to the decline in TICPI. This may include returning a minimal proportion of Australian directors, certain requirements for business activities such as no divestiture of certain assets and a certain tax requirement.
In addition to country risk, Romney will also face currency and financial risks if it enters the Australian market. Next, we explain the currency risk that can arise from currency issues. The first one is effect of changing Australian dollar. The appreciation and depreciation of currencies have an impact on multinational companies. Appreciation and depreciation against a currency can be predicted by the country's inflation rate. Figure 1 shows Australia's inflation rate over the past 3 years, and we can see that it has fluctuated significantly. The inflation rate in Australia has been slightly higher from 2022-1, even hitting 5.1 in 2022. In general, inflation tends to depreciate a currency. Because inflation can be equated with a decrease in the purchasing power of money, a weaker Australian dollars make import goods more expensive, so local may buy less of them. So, for example, when the Australian dollar depreciates, 1 ringgit can be exchanged for more Australian dollars. When Romney company exports its products to Australia, it is assumed that the price of exported Romney burgers from Australia is 3 Australian dollars before the depreciation. But when the Australian dollar depreciates, the Malaysian ringgit appreciates indirectly against the Australian dollar, and the price of Romney burgers imported from Australia will rise to 5 Australian dollars. Australian consumers need to pay more than before to get a Ramly burger because of rising import cost, which will reduce Ramly's competitiveness in the Australian market, and consumers may be more inclined to buy cheaper local products. The second one is foreign exchange rate. Since Ramly's parent company in Malaysia, it wants to enter Australian market since they have two different countries. Over time, change in the demand supply curve of the country's foreign exchange will lead to the frequent fluctuation in the support rate. This causes interest rate to force foreign exchange reserve to raise, the risk that the business may have to make or accept payment in the future. In addition, in international trade, whether it is a spot rate or forward transaction, a certain period of time will pass, so companies may suffer economic losses due to the exchange rate fluctuations. Therefore, there is a transaction risk to Ramly. We can see the example 1. Assume Ramly signed a contract with an Australian fast food importer. The total product price at the time of signing was 200,000 Australian dollars, and Ramly's income at the time of signing the contract was 1,500,000 ringgit. But 3 months later, the Malaysian ringgit fell against the Australian dollar, and the Australian importers paid less for the Ramly's products than when they signed the contract. This will result in a reduction in Ramly's earning, possibly as low as 100,000. Here is another example can explain it in detail. We can see the example 2. Assume Ramly sold 200,000 products to Australian grocer on March 1, 2021. The exchange rate on March 1 is 1 ringgit equals to 0.316 Australian dollar, and the order value is 300,000 multiple 0.316 which equals to 94800. On 2 months later, on the May 1, the Australian grocer need to pay 300,000 ringgit to Ramly, but the exchange rate on May 1 is 1 ringgit equals to 0.286 Australian dollars. So at this time, the order value is 200,000 multiple 0.286, which equals to 85800. The transaction loss will lose the 9,000. When the ringgit to Australian dollar exchange rate decreases, Ramly will lose the 9,000 Australian dollar benefits. And besides, fluctuations in exchange rate can affect Ramly's business in Australia. In the process of foreign exchange transaction due to exchange rate fluctuation, Ramly's asset purchasing power and solvency will change to varying degrees, thereby causing economic losses to the company. For example, the fluctuation in exchange rate make it possible for companies to determine the amount of domestic currency for import and export payment in advance. So Ramly's financial budget is increased, which in turn increases operating cost.
Now let us continue with the financial issue, Australian tax rate. Australian company tax regulations compel enterprises operating within Australia to pay a corporate tax rate of up to 30%. This is seen as a risk since, when compared to conducting business in Malaysia, the Malaysian corporation tax rate is 24%, which is somewhat lower than that of Australia. Therefore, this might affect Ramly's profit margins. Now, moving on to the debt risk. In June 2021, Australia's government debt amounted for 48% of the country's nominal GDP. This was higher considering the fact that it was 43.3% the previous year. This might have an impact on the company's revenue and raise the account's debt. Apart from that, house owners should be concerned about a new statistic provided by the Reserve Bank of Australia, which shows the life of debt they are signing up for amid increasing property prices. The average homeowner borrows more than 5.5 times their income as of December 2021. In the 1990s, a family had to set aside around a third of their income to pay off their debt. According to the most recent figures, as of December 2021, a family would need to set aside nearly twice as much as they make. The average debt-to-income ratio is 5.5, and it is shocking to find that many Australians are above that number. This group accounted for 23.8% of new borrowers in the 3 months ending September, up from 16.3% a year earlier and 21.9% the previous quarter. If the trend continues in this matter, it will be problematic for Ramly as it poses a threat to the economic appraisal of the company.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Ahmad Samil Yusuf. So right now I'm going to explain about the commercial issues that lead to commercial risks. So first of all, we know that Australia food sector is the country's largest contributor at 32%, and also the National Food and Grocery says that the food industry and its food ingredients are worth until to 122 billion, and also the food industry reaches to 50,000 company. Australia may be one of the countries that can provide Ramley with growth opportunities and make Ramley business a success. Perhaps most importantly, burger or fast food dominate the food scene in Australia, and the trend is never going away. Ramley will conduct an in-depth study of its market based on the characteristic and behavior of Australian, because Australia has young people who are very trend conscious and fast conscious. Ramley has to find a strategy that suits the needs, and also Ramley need to increase the brand awareness and maintain control over the quality of product, shipment, and also maybe for Ramley it suits them shipment are best through an intermediary. Intermediary is a facility storage, potential packaging, channels, and customers. The best way to advertise in Australia is in print. In Australia, Ramley will employ a penetration pricing strategy to attract customers or consumer, capture market share and gain market share quickly during the introduction phase of the Ramley product life cycle at a lower price than your competitors. As we have seen, Ramley has expanded to several countries such as Bangladesh, Cambodia, Thai, Indonesia, and Thailand. As I know from several studies, we know that Indonesia is one of the countries where people really enjoy their traditional food. However, Ramley is still venturing into the country. As a result, it still brought a great success. So, in addition, Ramley may find success in Australia and also avoid the business risk. Why? Because Ramley Burger will able to adapt quickly in Australia, because Australia is one of the most populous countries in the world, with a population that loves foods like burger, a lot of bread, hot dogs, and potatoes.
According to past analysis, Ramley should enter the Australian market in an export model. We are faced with two positive factors and two negative factors. First of all, Australia as an immigrant country has a larger population and a large number of beliefs, so there is no big difference in eating habits. Ramley's products have a certain market and can be self-sufficient in production materials. Political factors in Australia are less likely to fluctuate, and even the transition of old and new governments will not have an impact on Ramley. Secondly, for currency problems that's generating negative factors, the problems caused by currency and foreign exchange can be avoided by some choice such as hedging or forward contracts. Due to the FTA between Australia and Malaysia, there is not much of a problem in tariffs and the cost of import. FTA reduced the trade barriers and thus lowers tariffs, making products exported to Australia lower cost and more competitive. Among the business factors, Ramley needs to attract customers by improving brand awareness while maintaining product quality to ensure that customers become loyal customers of Ramley products, and improving customer satisfaction to ensure customer reconsume. Adopt the corresponding penetration pricing strategy to seize the market. In the face of negative factors, Ramley has corresponding solutions and will not have a major impact on companies enter into the Australian market.